Hi, and welcome to the CAFMA Connect. I'm your host this week, Cody Rose. Chief Freitag is out. He's just returning from Washington, D.C., where he was doing some legislative work for fire districts and firefighters across the state. So thank you, Chief Freitag, for that, and get some sleep and get rested. This week, we're going to talk about some cancer mitigation. So I have our facilities manager here with us, Eric Crossman, and he's going to talk a little bit about what he learned at a conference that he went to a couple years back, and then what's some of the things that we've done at our fire station facilities since he's returned from that. So, Eric?
Hi.
Hi, Eric.
Thanks
How are
for
you?
having me.
Thank you. How's the shoulder, by the way?
It's better. It's getting
He's
there.
recovering from shoulder surgery
Yes.
that he had out. He thought he was going to be out for a week, and we're on 3 weeks now, and
3
he's
weeks.
limping back.
Yeah, I'm getting there. No throwing balls yet. So anyway, yes. I went to a conference a couple of years ago. The conference had a wide variety of stuff, but it focused on like architects. So they did a lot of presentations on, where we're headed, where the stations are headed, and obviously cancer mitigation is a big topic. So just to make this pretty quick, couple of the main things were one being countertops, which were surprising, which I focused on classes that I knew were relevant to what we were doing. So countertops, which to my surprise, I think everybody realizes that, most of the stations are trying to go with stainless steel, which is one of the top choices. But quartz was actually, at this conference at the time, was brought up as one of the preferred choices through the architects. So good news is we actually had already headed that direction, and Station 59 and Station 53 both have quartz countertops currently. I think we're going forward more so with stainless steel because it's more long-term, the way I look at it, the stainless steel. Quartz still has, its faults with, cleaning and so forth, consistency over long-term, my opinion, and just from experience with, with the crews and the time they have available, and probably where you'll get one crew that'll clean a certain way and another crew may clean differently. So consistency isn't quite there yet through our departments, and so we try to accommodate that. And I think stainless steel is a little more forgiving. So going forward, we're going to focus on utilizing stainless steel.
With that, what's the benefit to the quartz or the stainless steel? Why do we want that over a different countertop that might really look nice?
Yes. So currently, obviously, which two of the stations I did just this past year was 54 and 50, because they had laminate tops. Laminate tops are porous. So what they do is when you get the contaminants or carcinogens are brought in through the bays or however, they're typically airborne. When they settle into a porous material, they're very difficult to get out. And when the guys are doing food prep, obviously that is there, and they can pick up those contaminants. Stainless steel and quartz do not. They're not a porous material, so that obviously is much easier to clean. When you wipe them down, the contaminants are removed, and where the laminate materials, they're not. They're always there.
Got it. Okay.
So same thing in the same sense. Not just countertops are, for example, carpets. Another thing we're doing is trying to remove carpets, go with epoxy flooring, and same scenario. The carpets obviously hold those contaminants where the epoxy materials, it's not porous at all, and it's easy for them to clean, wipe up quickly, whatever it be. Yeah. And all these, from my perspective, obviously there's many points to this. It starts from if they come back from a fire, they pull off their gear. We got there's steps they have to do. But from our standpoint is more so engines, diesel, exhaust, stuff like that that's coming back into the bays. And one thing we're doing is first step is trying to eliminate those in the bays by either exhaust filters or what we currently have is exhaust systems that are just air movement. So an improved step was, and this is another thing I picked up at the conference, was a lot of people want that direct connection. So that engine pulls up, guys jump out, they hook up the hose, pull the engine in, every bit of that exhaust fume is being extracted. The problem is what I learned at the conference from other departments that took that approach was they were finding it wasn't consistent. So guys that just get back, they're exhausted, whatever reason, overlooked, and there was no consistency in them making that connection. Or, they pull the engine in, then connect it, which defeated the purpose. So sometimes they were pulling it off, because they had failures with them disconnecting, whatever it be. So one thing I learned was it was, favorable to use exhaust filtration systems, charcoal, whatever it may be. So this year we're trying something new, which I learned from the conferences. We have at 2 of our stations aeration systems that pull the airflow above, and they pull it in one end and blow it out the other, which is great, but you're waiting for all that to rise to that level. So the new ones that we're trying, that I pulled from the conference as well, this year at 63, they actually draw from the bottom, which creates kind of an airflow. They blow out the sides, they draw from the bottom, which will actually bring that exhaust up quicker. So I'm excited to see how they fare. It's kind of a process of testing right now, and if that goes well, I want to implement them in other locations that are just air movement is what we're counting on. So, and the other thing is turnouts. I think that's been a priority as well. Is obviously these contaminants that are in the bays. For some of the locations that don't have a turnout room currently, their gear have been sitting out in the bays. 63 is a prime example. Also, let's see, the other one was 61. So what we did this year is, last year we did 61. We took an area in the bay space that they had available. We designed, a little, clean air zone for it, and we put some, lockers inside it. And it's a huge improvement. Every time you go in there, you can just notice the difference walking from the bay into that room.
Talk a little bit about that air circulation, the constant air circulation
So
in those rooms.
The biggest thing is keeping positive airflow in these rooms. And when I say positive airflow, I use that terminology. Maybe it's not accurate, but I use it because to me, it's keeping air that flows always out. So you never want to draw into a room dirty air. So what we do is, in order to keep positive airflow, we find a source. 61, we were fortunate enough to have the gym next door, so we were able to blow a hole through the wall. We put a low CFM fan in the corner opposite end, and we constantly are pulling from that room. We seal off the door between the bay, so it's always going to pull from the least resistance, and that keeps that positive air, clean air, going through those turnouts at all times. 63 is a little more challenging. We didn't have acclimated temperature air on that side. Everybody, I've had this mentioned to me multiple times. Why don't you just bring the air in from the outside? That's clean air. Why not just do that? It's easy, get it from the roof. Everybody forgets. Yeah, that's great in the summertime or, springtime, fall, whatever. But wintertime when it's 20 degrees and you're drawing, let's say 200 CFM into that room of 20 degree air, they're going to walk in there and those turnouts are going to be stiff, when they go to pull them on. So it's there's challenges. So we're trying something different at 63 with, an offsetting that temperature with a heating element of source. Downfall to that is obviously you're going to have more cost involved with having to do that instead of having air that's, already at temperature.
Yeah. And then with the radiant heaters that we have versus the forced air heaters that we used to have.
So one thing that I also learned through that conference as well is you take these old forced air units, and a lot of these have been here for years because back in the day, they didn't think of concerns of cancer or any of this stuff. But anyway, so now you get these contaminants laying in the bay and you got a forced air unit just blowing air down on it. Well, it stirs it all up. And it also, and by eliminating that and going to a radiant heater, there's no forced air. It's just radiant heat that, we utilize to, heat these bays, which helps with the contaminants, obviously, stirring them up. But in addition to that, they're a little more cost effective because as minimal as it might be, it may raise our temperature of our concrete by a degree, 2 degree. And what that does is when the guys leave the station, open the doors, you lose all that heat, but the recovery time is that much quicker. And so it's cost savings as well. Plus the new heaters are all 2-stage heaters. So what that means is basically they only work as they needed. So if it's a 2-degree, 3-degree difference in temperature, you may only have 1 stage kick on, very cost effective versus 2.
And how many stations do we have those in now?
So we've already done, just this past year, we already did 54, 53, and 63 have been completed. 58 already has them. So this upcoming year, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 more stations. I'd like to do 2 maybe in the upcoming year and 2 the year after that. Okay. So essentially, in the last year and a half, we made some significant progress, I would say, as far as stainless steel countertops at 54 and 50, upgrade quartz countertops we've done at 53 and 59. We've put in these bay heaters at 54, obviously 63 and 53, like I just said, and then the exhaust units up at 63. So pretty good progress in just a year and a half time frame, I would say. Getting there
for sure. And I was just, as you're talking, sitting here thinking of, I started 21 years ago, and when we started, it was you wore your turnouts into the bunk room. Well, the bunk room at 61 was an open bunk room, so there was 8 beds in there, and you all slept right next to each other and had our turnouts right by our bed. And you get a call, and you jump up, get your turnouts, and you leave. Well, obviously, we've learned that's not what we want to be doing because of the cancer elements that are in your turnouts, plus what you're carrying in the boots and all those other things. So it's definitely different from what we used to do, but that's in a good way, and trying to reduce those cancer-causing agents that we carry in. To the firefighters and to what we do every day, 24 hours a day in the station. So what's plans for the future? You talked a little bit about the radiant heaters. What about do we have turnout rooms? We have some other things. I know we have some turnout rooms that currently are in a separate room, but they don't have that circulating air. They're not up to the standards that you're trying to get to in the next few years. But what's some of your plans for the future? I think our next
step is taking a look at what's there, because a lot of them, they have an isolated room, which works, and some of them, I think there's just a couple left that exhaust fans might have been put in, but there's no source to feed those. So right currently we have, we are moving airflow, but what we're doing is relying it on under the door, from the quarter side or so forth. So what we're going to try and do is increase that, and also consistency. A lot of the stations, and I try to address this, as they come in, they turn it off because of the noise. I understand that, and I know it's a little bit of a burden at night, when it's real quiet. But the purpose of it is if we keep that positive airflow flowing through those, you don't have to worry about ever drawing from the bay at any time and drawing those contaminants in. So, we're going to continue to work at that. Again, these exhausts, if they go well at 63, I'd like to implement them at a couple of the other stations. Currently, Chino always had those aeration systems, so they were, they're in place and functioning. We're going to continue to, keep those going, and then down, in Prescott Valley, try to add those. And again, I'm saying add because we currently have exhaust systems, and there's no reason to get rid of those, because to me, the more options we have to try and keep that clean air, the better. We don't fortunately have the funding like some of the Phoenix stations that actually force air into their stations with huge cooler units that can turn over air in 3, 4, 5 minutes. But we're dealing with what we got to work with, and we're trying, and I think we've made a lot of progress to make a lot of improvements. Like you said, back in the day, what they did, just what we do now for their procedures, removing gear before coming in, it's all a process, all steps to get there. And for the guys at 51, we're working with Prescott Fire and the city of Prescott to make that swap. I know we've talked about this forever, but to make the swap from 51 to 72 and those stations, so that 72 would be owned by the city of Prescott, 51 would be owned by CAFMA, and then we can start making some of those changes. And I think one of the first ones we do there is get their turnouts out of the bay and get their gym out of the bay so that they can work in an environment where they're not in the diesel exhaust regularly. So we're working on that. It's definitely at the forefront. There's just a lot of politics that are involved in making that happen. But I can tell you that Chief Dura with the city of Prescott and the new city manager with the city of Prescott, I met her yesterday, very nice lady, that they're definitely on board with that. It's just the process to making that happen. So hopefully we can get that done in the near future. Lots more work.
Yeah. And as far as cancer mitigation stuff, that's all we have for you this week. Somebody will be back next week. I think it's Chief Freitag to talk a little bit about political legislative stuff, but we'll leave that up to Kathy and her important work that she's doing over there on the computer. She doesn't want to talk to us. But thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week.